Good evening to all. This is the Liberian View again. Today we're going to be discussing the same topic, Liberians at home working together, Liberians at home and abroad working together for a brighter future. At our last discuss on the 29th episode of the Liberian View, we addressed and we outlined we addressed and outlined challenges that may impact Liberians at home and abroad on the fact that we are striving to work together. And some of the challenges that were discussed and addressed and listed include, but they are not limited to, mistrust, gaps between Liberians at home, economic gaps between Liberians at home and abroad, forced migration from various counties to Montserrat County due to the Civil War, the series of civil wars we've had, Ebola, and also the lack of food, lack of healthcare infrastructure within those various counties, lack of schools, bad road conditions, and the centralization of Liberia's economic framework. However, amidst of the challenges, we stay stressed on the need of working together in the fact that how can we at home and abroad embrace one another, work together, accept one another, work together in unity for Liberia. And some of the areas that were discussed and listed, we talked about how the government will review the policies and change the policies on, or maybe how can we also work together on how Liberians in Liberia view the diaspora professionals. And then also working together and ensuring respect and appreciation for all Liberians, regardless of your geographical location, because once a Liberian, always a Liberian. We also talked about we also looked at the acute sanitation challenges. And this is not only a government issue, it's also a Liberian issue. Because we talked about how will you look at trash and put the trash in front of your house. So even if there are government policies instituted, there must be the responsibility of the Liberians within Liberia and other nationals that live in Liberia to do the right thing and not just wait for the government. We also look at our healthcare, looking at reviewing our healthcare system, the institution, the licensure requirements, and also looking at government entities, the way they work, and other businesses within Liberia. We also talked about some areas that we could review that is existing in Liberia, other structures, other institutions, and how can we improve on that. We look at what we have that are positive. We looked at our favorable climate conditions. We look at also how can the government or the United Nations, or how can the government use other aspects and subsidize agricultural projects in various counties. We also talked about embracing tourism, making it like a standalone institution, looking at remodeling our major historical areas. And the most important thing, acknowledging that American Liberians and indigenous Liberians will always be part of our history. And the fact that we can work together to change our mindset to know that we are Liberians. We talked about ensuring that the government focus also on Liberianization policy, because what is owned by a Liberian or received by a Liberian stay in Liberia. We also looked at and discussed our tax system, ensuring that all Liberians in business, wherever, or non-Liberians, other nationals that are living in Liberia, to pay their required taxes. So these are things that we discussed, and we even discuss more. So today, what we have done after our discussion on the 29th, we decided that we would invite other professionals, religious leaders in their various social, economic, in every aspect, because someone can be a reverend doctor, but is socially when it comes to other professionals, they are well involved, and they have all the experiences that is required. So we're going to be inviting other IT professionals, healthcare professionals. But today, the Liberian View is privileged to have reverend doctors that who will also contribute to the system, that the structure that needs to be in place for us to work together as Liberians. Because building Liberia require us all Liberians working together to build a bright and better Liberia. So I'm going to take a pause now. Yeah, because I just want to give you a synopsis of where we were and where we are going to, where we are uh, working towards when it comes to the discussion. So I'll give the opportunity to Mr. Andrew Kolukie, who will introduce our guest speakers on our panelists, and then after that, the voice you're going to hear will be Mr. First, Mr. David Golowo. I'll just give you the opportunity to just say briefly who you are, because you're a member of the Liberian View, so that people can know who is speaking. And then from there, we'll give the floor to Mr. Andrew Kolukie Jr. to introduce our panelists. Mr. Golowo, you can take the floor and just say hello and who you are.
Hello to um, the distinguished guests, Ms. Kier and Liberians around the world. Thanks for joining in. Um, I'm David Golowo Jr., a panelist of the Liberian View. I'm a biomedical engineer by trade. I live here in North Carolina, Durham, North Carolina. And it's good to be here hear from these great men of God, to see how best they could tell us how we are going to put our country back on the map, how we're going to unite the country, how we're going to resolve those many issues we have. Liberia is plagued with vices that have torn us apart. Yes, those vices have led us to war, and so um, these are the right people to help us steer us towards prosperity, in a conflict resolution, and to help us to get back on track. So it's good to be here, and I'm going to be on the side to hearing from them, chiming in, asking questions, and giving my input. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And so we'll turn the floor over to Mr. Andrew Kolukia Jr., who will introduce our panelists. Andrew, the floor is yours.
Greetings to all. My name is Andrew Kier, and it is my pleasure to welcome our panelists. Firstly, we have Reverend Dr. J. Edwin Lloyd Jr. Reverend Dr. J. Edwin Lloyd Jr. is the senior pastor of the Whosoever Christian Church of Beltsville, Maryland. Reverend Lloyd serves as the executive director of the Whosoever Church Community Assistance Program. He is also a mental health counselor and serves as the Risk Reduction Program Manager and the Master Resilience Trainer of the District of Columbia National Guard. Additionally, he is a veteran of the United States Army. Reverend Dr. J. Edwin Lloyd Jr. is a recipient of several awards, three of which being the Army Achievement Medal, the Liberian Community Association DC Distinguished Service Award, and the Ambassador of Peace Award for participating in a peace conference at the demilitarized zone in South Korea. Dr. Lloyd has studied at the University of Liberia, Howard University, Syracuse University, and Eastern Mennonite University. Secondly, we have Reverend Dr. Harold Osborne Wilson. Upon matriculating to the United States in 1987, Dr. Wilson received a full 4-year academic scholarship to attend Allen University in Columbia, South Carolina, where he graduated magna cum laude with a Bachelor of Arts degree in Sociology Social Work. While at Allen University, he was selected to serve as campus minister. After the completion of his undergraduate studies, he enrolled at Southern Carolina State University, Orangeburg, South Carolina, and received the Master's of Arts degree in Rehabilitation Counseling. After graduating from South Carolina State University, he pursued seminary studies at Payne Theological Seminary in Wilberforce, Ohio, graduating with a Master of Divinity. Reverend Wilson is a recipient of the Doctor of Ministry degree of Hood Theological Seminary in Salisbury, North Carolina. In the early 80s, Reverend Dr. Wilson acknowledged the call and began his preaching ministry. He was licensed in 1984 and in 1986, ordained itinerant deacon in the AME Church by the late Bishop Vernon Rembert Bird. He is a member of the Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. And lastly, we have Reverend Dr. Rudolph Monsiel Brofle. Reverend Dr. Rudolph Monsiel Brofle is a librarian from humble beginnings. He led the design and development of Liberia's first doctoral program, which began at Cuttington University, where he now serves as vice president for the graduate school. He's a thought leader, an economics professor, a preacher, and a visionary leader, an effective communicator with strong leadership and physical management abilities. His academic preparation entails as such: a Doctor of Philosophy, Psychology at Oxford University, a Master's of Theology at St. Mary's Seminary and University, a Master of Divinity at Howard University, a Master of Science Economics at Johns Hopkins University, Baltimore, a Bachelor of Science Economics at the University of Liberia Monrovia, and certifications in education in Baltimore, Maryland. Dr. Broflet, over his professional career, has been able to mobilize, motivate, manage, and move people to things done. His personal philosophy is that giving is the essence of living. Therefore, one must give generously to live abundantly. He draws energy from opportunities to equip, encourage, and empower people. Thank you very much. That is all for the introductions.
Okay, we want to take this time to say thank you so much, Mr. Andrew Kolukir, for such a detailed introduction. And so, ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to do right now, we're going to give the floor to Reverend Dr. Harold Osborne Wilson to start the discourse. Reverend Wilson, the floor is yours. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Kerr, for the invitation to come and to be a part of this august discussion pertaining to the future of Liberia. Working Liberians at home and abroad, working together for a brighter future. I am elated to be a part of this panel and certainly want to engage in conversation as to how we can help promote this cause and to work with you and others, especially during this time in our country's history where so much is needed. And I strongly believe that those of us who are abroad can contribute immensely to the growth and prosperity of Liberia, uh, the Liberia that we know, the Liberia that there are possibilities that can become the Liberia again, so that our posterity and even now, this now generation can see and embrace the cultural and other significance of our country to make it more the kind of country that we need to have for the good of all people, not only Liberians at home, Liberians abroad, but all people. Ms. Kerr, you mentioned something about tourism. Liberia is a wonderful country when it comes to tourism. We have so much to offer, so much. And I've had the privilege since I've been here. Mr. Kerr, you did mention I've been here since 1987. You rightly said it. I've had the opportunity to travel home 3 times, and just to each time I went back home, it was a wonderful experience to see that even though our country may not be where it's supposed to be right now, but the potential for is there for us to expand our tourism, other areas that you've mentioned, Ms. Kerr, in your introduction. Healthcare, and I heard that Dr. Lord has so much experience in the mental health field, and I have as well. Matter of fact, I just retired from the Department of Mental Health here in South Carolina, a state government, for 28 years. And these are things that probably, that we have experienced, have worked with, have garnered those experiences that we can transfer, take back home. Because you look at the population. I went home a few years ago, and I don't know, I've forgotten the street where the graveyard is. I think it's Center Street, I believe. I
Center
think
Street.
that's the Center Street. I was so appalled by what I saw, that we had our people living in the graveyard. And that touched me so much so that I said to myself, yes, I do have a future to return home. I certainly do. And with these skills, to go back and work with the mentally ill. I've been doing this for 20 and 30 years. That's all I know besides preaching, pastoring. And with this kind of skill to take back home, and having engaged professionals here that I've worked with, psychiatrists, nurse practitioners, and those in the field who will want to go back pro bono, to help our people back there. At least we have those ties and capacities to try to do something, to help uh, our young men and women, especially those who have fallen prey to a mental illness and have mental challenges. So healthcare is absolutely one of those things that we're looking at to engage in, especially where my expertise is. Besides pastoring for 35 plus years here in the United States, Ms. Kerr.
I'm sorry, you can go on, please.
Okay, I can go on. All right. Well, thank you so much. And I was trying to, in your brief introduction, I was trying to take some notes as to what your previous platform discussed, or your panel, uh, and talk about the tax system. You talked about agriculture, uh, and the cleanliness of Liberia. Especially in the Monrovia area. If anybody has been home recently, the few years I went back home, what a deplorable condition. And it takes collective effort. It takes us individually who are back home, who are living there, to practice cleanliness. There's a saying that cleanliness is next to godliness. Uh, 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 when you were introducing, giving a brief synopsis of your last discussion, the first thing in my mind was there was a lady. I think she was is it the mayor of the former mayor of Monrovia, Mary, is her name?
Mirabel.
Anybody?
Mirabel.
Mira, Mira, exactly. And she did an excellent job, keeping the city clean. But after she left that position, things just went back to where they were. And I think, if we're going to want to be a host of any big event in Liberia, you know, take for example, years ago when we had the OAU summit, Liberia was next. I mean, there was no other country that we couldn't compare ourselves to. All right, the cleanliness, the environment was so pleasant. If we can go back, and it would take all of us to do that, not just putting the trash in front of our homes, our houses, but have a system designed where, the trash can be picked up and taken to a dump, a place designated. And let's keep the city clean. If we want to attract people to come to our country, our city, you know, cleanliness is absolutely important, very important. And I'm hoping that would be one of the primary objectives for us to make sure that we have a system in place to keep our city, to keep our country clean. All right, from the airport all the way down to downtown Monrovia. Uh, it's so important. Um, People want to come, but if we don't have the sanitary good sanitary conditions, there's some who will not come. But so it falls back on us as Liberians to make sure that we prioritize those things and try to get our country back in order. Now, the little things that we pretty much don't think are significant, they are very significant. I shared with my brother Felix Wilson, who is on the line right now, some time ago. I had a conversation with in Brussels. We were transitioning from Liberia back to the U.S. and we had a layover there in Brussels at the airport. And this Liberian businessman, he lived here in America, but went back home to check on his business. Unfortunately, what was told him on the ground that things were booming, when he got there, he saw otherwise. All right. So trust is another issue. If we're going to prioritize getting our country back to where it needs to be, then we have to put certain systems in place and we have to work it. We're going to get some kickbacks, some setbacks, and what have you, but consistency is the key, and we can change. For example, one of the things that me and the gentleman discussed at the airport, he went to the police department, Liberian National Police force there on the bypass, and met with one of the key persons there who was in charge of, one of the divisions, and I think it was the license division, and there was so much chaos in there, and he went to her for a private conversation and said, "Ma'am, I don't want to disrespect you. I'm not here to disrespect you, but I just want to offer my input, how we can improve the system." And he introduced to her the numbering system, pulling a number. When your number is called, you go in line and get done what needs to be done. All right. Uh, she felt a little bit intimidated, that someone from America was coming back home to tell her how to do her job. That mindset, if we continue to have that mindset, it's going to be difficult for us to make progress. And I think we need to be open-minded, embrace those things that will the change that will make a difference as we try to rebuild our country to where it needs to be. I know that so much is at stake, so much is involved, but we have to start from somewhere. And starting from somewhere is key to our success down the road.
Okay, thank you so much, Reverend Dr. Edwin, Reverend Dr. Howard Wilson. One of the questions I just got was like, as a reverend, you've been in the United States, schooled in Liberia, visited Liberia. From a religious perspective, how do you think can we come together to work towards a brighter future, taking into consideration all the challenges? The religious organizations in Liberia, have you been able to talk to them, because that's part of working together? Thank you.
Well, I have not directly been talking to anybody in Liberia about this, but I've been part of a major movement. Uh, um, Reverend the Bishop, Archbishop Frederick Na, I think some of you may know him, or all of us may know him, who invited me to his platform. We had meetings every Sunday trying to make sure that we bring together from every corner of Liberia for a religious awakening. I think it was cleansing of Liberia from a religious perspective. We were in the back, trying to do what we had to do to make sure this was possible. We did not attend that event, which was held at the stadium, um, but we saw that on video that which took place. Even the President Weir at the time was there, along with other members of his cabinet present. Uh, and it was something to bring us together, evoke the presence of God first. But the scripture says that we should seek what? The kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all things will be added unto us. And I think that's what we need to do, regardless of our religious affiliation. It's absolutely important for us to come together at the same time, respecting each other's religious background, and come together and work together. When I was home, when I was in high school, Monrovia College, I had a lot of Muslim brothers in my class, and uh, there was no chaos between us, among us. We worked together. We went to school together. We ate together, and what have you, you know. Compared to what we experience here in the United States, Islam is like the most ugly religious organization when it comes to the mindset of certain individuals here. But it's not so back home when I was there. Okay, except things have changed. But we work together. And what I'm trying to say is that we can come together as a religious, what you call ecumenical a body, for us to sit down around the table and discuss how we can be an impact to the future of Liberia, because it's absolutely important. You cannot leave that component out, the religious aspect of a country. And mind you, now, if my history is right, Liberia is founded on Christian principles. And I think if we were to go back, to the basics, and bring back those things to the forefront, that will guide us to be able to see things and do things, not only invoking the spiritual perspective first, but at the same time asking God for discernment and revelation to do future things in Liberia that would incorporate everybody, not only pastors, not only political leaders, but everybody to come. The problem we have, in my estimation, is that you have certain folks. You have like from Dr. Lloyd, you may help me out, but you have during the biblical time you had the Jews and the Gentiles, and those two, they couldn't see eye to eye. The Jews always felt that they were supreme, or they were so astute, and because they knew the law and how to quote the law and what have you. Anything other than that, they didn't see it as something that will impact the Jewish community or the world as a whole. So they felt like the Jews were the prime people to rule everything. And the point I'm trying to drive here is that if we have that mentality in Liberia, it's going to be difficult for us to move forward for a brighter future of Liberia. And it takes collective effort. It would take all of us to do this. Now, talking about agriculture, all right. My dad had a program, A. John Wilson on the farm. Some of you may remember that. And the little that I learned from him, obviously through his program, those things can still be brought back to the forefront. Start small if we don't already have it on a larger scale. Matter of fact, I'm sure that you have very learned people in that area, in that industry, agricultural area, uh, and even try to do an exchange program. Let some of our young people who are interested in the agricultural field come over here to the United States. With the religious community over here, possibly we can make some of those things happen. Okay, scholarships and what have you. I came on a scholarship, as you read, Brother Kerr, in my bio, a full 4-year scholarship. I came. Okay. And the same thing can happen for others who would like to do these things, improve themselves, but return home to what? Make a difference. And I've been here all these years, and it's time for me to go back home. And that is my next life's agenda, to return home, to be the help that I can be in whatever small way that I can. And I'm looking forward to that. Uh, hopefully in the next 3 to 4 years.
Okay, thank you so much, Reverend Dr. Harold Osborne Wilson. So you will rest for a while. I know that my colleagues on this call, Mr. Felix Wilson and Mr. David Golowo, will have some questions and they'll be able to chime in. But what we're going to do right now, well, just want to inform you all, Reverend Dr. Rudolph Brople is in Liberia. He's having challenges in joining. He's trying his best. He's the one I'm speaking with on the phone. We are hoping that things will work out for him, but we must forge ahead. And so we give the floor to none other than our own member of the Liberian View, the Reverend Dr. Edwin Lloyd, the floor to give his perspective. Reverend Lloyd, we appreciate you being a member and also being a panelist this time. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I also want to say a big thank you to the distinguished panelists for taking time to come on tonight, and also always give kudos to Brother Wilson and Brother Goodwill for coming on tonight. This topic is very expedient, given the current condition in Liberia. The result of the recent elections in Liberia, uh, and also the concession of the Cuban president, is a boost for Liberian future, and have increased and elevated the hope of all Liberians and well wishers of Liberian around the world. And so this discussion is very expedient to this time, very appropriate for this moment when Liberia has exhibited itself to be a peaceful nation, and that the leaders of our country are putting personal ambition uh, and below, and are putting up higher the interests and the welfare of the nation. So it's very commendable. The entire world has been taken aback by this, and the entire world is praising Liberia at this moment. So we as Liberians need to seize the opportunity and begin to move forward. I consider the move of the current president, Honorable Weah, His Excellency George Weah. I really want to commend his role that he has played, and that decision he made to concede, given the result of the election, is a pivotal moment. It has created a pivotal moment in a reconstruction and the growth of Liberia, considering that we are still in the post-war era. And so now, as Liberians abroad and Liberians in Liberia, it is time for us to come together. As our leaders have demonstrated goodwill towards the future of this nation, our nation, we also need to come together uh, and promote unity, as Dr. Wilson just stated. He talked about Liberians coming together regardless of religious, social, economic background. We need to still come together, knowing the fact that we are all Liberians, right? We have a commonality. We have a commonality, which is that we are all Liberians, and so therefore, what affects the nation affect us all. I also want to commend Dr. Wilson for having the plan to move back home, and these are issues that I will try to emphasize on as I go through the further discussion tonight. But first of all, I just want to say here tonight, I will briefly talk about three specific areas in which the diaspora can be so very much influential in the advancement of our nation. You
Mhm.
know that diaspora population in many cases can play a very important role in economic development of the countries of origin. We have empirical and evidence to prove that. In beyond sending remittances, the diaspora population can promote trade and direct foreign investment. We talked about that the last time in our conversation. Can create businesses, spur entrepreneurship, and also transfer new knowledge and skill. Very important. We have Mr. Governor on the line who is biochemical engineer, and I hope he can probably elaborate to the Liberian people and the listeners what a biochemical engineering is and how it can be so very much effective in the post war era in Liberia. And I know I hope he can do us that justice by doing that, so the other folks can get to know how important professionals like him is to the diaspora and also the nation, Liberian nation as a whole. And so the three areas where the diaspora can play a very key role in the development of Liberia, in the post-war development of Liberia, would be in trade, investment, skill, and knowledge transfer. Very, very important because the diaspora population are not confined to remittance, but it also come as a great advantage to countries, especially those countries that have emerged out of a civil war. The Civil War created the flight, capital flight. It created a huge brain drain for Liberia, but yet still, on a positive note, it had created a class of Liberian professionals that can play a huge impact on our nation's future when it comes to providing the human capital development that we need in Liberia, and also the mental health field, also the professionals, like Rosie and myself and other mental health professionals, can come in to renew the minds of Liberia because the country cannot be transformed if the minds of the people are not transformed. If the minds of the people change, the country will change. For example, Civil War, the mind of the people will. So therefore, the war destroyed our nation. So now, if the mind of the people can focus on peace, tranquility, and progress, that means the country will change towards a direction of progress, development, and sustainability. And that's why I'm so elated by this new government that is coming in. Also, we elated by the present government and the step they have taken to preserve peace.
Yeah.
It's a very glorious day for Liberia at this moment. And I was watching the YouTube clip when the transitional team gathered together, including the current leadership and the incoming leadership, trying to work together for the advancement of our nation. All Liberians should be applauding this new step and this new direction and that the country is taking. And because what happened is that it's going to create a climate of peace that will invoke and encourage direct foreign investment, including Liberian populace. But just and not to be too lengthy and just to pause for a moment to give the other speakers some time, I would just briefly talk about the three basic areas that the diaspora can function in a way that will bring sustainability and growth to our nation. First, we must consider trade. There are demonstrable links between the presence of the diaspora population and the increase of trade. So diaspora contribution to trade will increase the connection where producers and consumers in countries of origin or also in countries of destination to be able to come together and put the resources that is needed to promote trade in our country. The diaspora population involving in trade can also increase the export of that nation in the sense that the diaspora population can what can be able to purchase finished product from the nation of origin. We see that in various countries around the world, and we see that now here with Liberians ordering and African clothes, African food, and various products that are produced in Liberia. The diaspora population play a key role in increasing the export, the rate of the export sector in Liberia. Also, the diaspora population can also encourage other investors from the country or destination to be able to go in and invest in the nation. And so trade is very crucial. And so the current government, I hope the current government can be able to make the trade policies flexible and favorable to the diaspora population to be able to increase direct foreign investment. Also, the diaspora can invest directly in the countries of origin and persuade non-diaspora investors to do the same by boosting investor confidence. Because once you invest in your own country, the folks from other countries will be able to develop confidence in your economy and begin to attract also the capital towards that nation. So therefore, it will create tools that will be able to advance the nation. Also, the World Bank and also, I hope I have the time to elaborate. The World Bank have created system of bonds for other developing countries that diaspora population can directly invest in. And the funding from the bonds can be used for major development projects in those nations of origin, and especially for India, Israel, and China. You see the Chinese rapid economic growth came from direct foreign investment from the diaspora population, which also encouraged direct foreign investment for other nationals around the world. Very crucial to the Chinese advancement, economic advancement that have occurred in the last 10 to 15 years. The diaspora play a very key role in that. Also, now we go to skill and knowledge transfer. Diaspora often have valuable skills and experiences, as I stated, and contacts abroad that can transfer back to the country of origin by seeding businesses in entrepreneurship, training and monitoring the native workers, and boosting emerging industries. Very crucial, emerging industries. The diaspora population can play a key role in emerging industries, also in skills and knowledge transfer. Give me a reference to our young brother who is on the line right now, and he a biochemical engineer. I know he loves Liberia very well, but he can also collaborate with other professionals in this area, other professionals also in similar areas that will be able to go back to Liberia, maybe probably few times a year to contribute that knowledge and transfer knowledge to the Liberian population. So the diaspora have acquired the intellectual properties that they can transfer back to Liberia, and the Liberian government should be receptive of this advantage and begin to develop avenues where diaspora collaboration and cooperation can be enhanced. And very important, other countries have established ministries, and have established ministerial offices that directly deal with diaspora contribution and diaspora and cooperation. And so therefore, I hope the new government can be able to do that, and so they can be able to tap on the capability of the diaspora in general, be able to measure the impact and also the intellectual ability of the diaspora to be able to see how they can tap into the intellectual ability to the advantage of the nation, so that it will coincide with the national agenda of that nation. Very important. And so these are the three areas that are very crucial for examination, crucial for deep study and also use these three areas to be able to basically compare these areas to the advancement of other nations and be able to get and draw empirical evidence in the systems of operation, so that we can be able to copy these systems of operation that have worked in other nations around the world, so that it can also be able to be applied to our present national condition. So therefore, I just want to say here that this is a very crucial moment in our history, And I believe all Liberians in the diaspora should come on board, and we should be able to forget our differences and begin to work together for our common interests. Because we all want to be like Dr.
Mhm.
Wilson, who will want to go back home, live in a peaceful and prosperous nation, and be able to live the rest of our life in prosperity and tranquility on at the place where our neighbor string lies, as many people will say. And we all plan to go back to Liberia, but we want the Liberia that we aspire to, the one Liberia that we wish to have, then we all must be able to work together to achieve that common goal. And I will end on that note. And I want to say again, thank you, Madam Kia, for establishing this platform. And this platform, through your instrumentality, have created immense contribution to your nation. You may not know, but the intellectual discourse that we have here and the ideas and that we galvanize from this discussion can play a
Mhm.
key role in the post-war development of Liberia. Thank you again, Madam Kia, for the opportunity.
Okay, we want to say thank you so much. We know that, thank you so much, and I know that my colleagues on the call and even those on watching from YouTube and Facebook have had a lot of questions that they need to ask. But now we have Reverend Dr. Rudolph Brookle in Liberia who have really been working hard to log on. And so I will ask my colleagues to please for also now he's going off again. So while we're going through the discuss, let's please be watching because once it's on, we can give him the opportunity to say a few words before his system can go off. So let's all just take note of that. So I have to go back
Madam Kia,
and
Malaki, I just want to interject quickly. If you can get Dr. Brookley on the line and by voice, and it can come on probably not visually, but by voice, that would be also fine because if you're speaking to
yeah,
him clearly, you can ask him to come on in the verbally to be able to
yeah,
contribute to the discussion here.
yeah. So what we're gonna do right now, we're gonna move quickly, but I just want to urge everyone to just be watching because he comes on for 5 minutes and he's gone off, so that he can chime in. So I'm gonna give the floor to for questions and I mean, or maybe if we want Mr. Golowo, you want to chime in
Okay.
because I think you have been listed and mentioned
Hmm.
regarding your profession and
Right.
how you can contribute to that. We can
Right.
also take this opportunity to ask Reverend Dr. Harold Osborne Wilson question based on what he stated, and also Reverend Dr. Edwin Lloyd. And we also be mindful to watch and see when Dr. Brobler comes on so we can give him the opportunity to at least say hello because he's really, really trying to get on. So, Mr. David Goldwell, the floor is yours.
Okay. Um, I will ask Reverend Doctor Lloyd's this question, but I have a question for both of them since they are the clergymen. I think um this is their forte. Um, so Sierra Leone, Rwanda, South Africa, those three countries. I think he's on. So should I pause and let him speak? Doctor
Let me,
Bople?
Dr. Brobler, if I
Yeah,
mean, you
yeah,
can
he's
say
on.
what
So
you
I have
want
to
to say
pause.
since you're on.
Yes.
Dr. Brobler, the floor is yours and you're muted. You need to unmute yourself. Dr. Brobler, if you're speaking, you're muted. We're not hearing you. So could you please unmute yourself? Good. Now you
Yeah,
can
I,
speak.
I just did that. And
Thank you.
I don't know if you can hear me now or not.
We're hearing you clearly, sir.
Well, good evening and to everybody. Thank you, Madam Host, panelists. I okay, very good, very good. I apologize profusely. because I am dislodged. I had hoped I would have been home, sitting at my gadget, and actually, but for almost 3 hours, I've been in zone, and cannot get through. I'm still in the traffic at Zone, and can't get through. And so I'm talking to you from the car. My camera obviously is off, and but at least you can hear me. So I'll do my best to lend my audio to the conversation, and hopefully it can be helpful.
Thank you.
So I don't know where we are or what was expected at this point. So again, I apologize.
Okay, he's gone off. We'll go through our questions.
Okay. So I'm gonna. I mean, so let me before I lose my train of thought, let me answer Dr. Lloyd's question, and then I'll ask them the direct question. Let me just reverse it. So he asked me, well, how can I use my expertise to help Liberia? That's a very good question, and this is something I've been working on. I'm very passionate about it, and I have put in place mechanisms to achieve that, and also the work of others. So as we speak, there, I'm involved with a group of Liberian engineers um, across the board, and we're trying to form a think tank here in the U.S. Dr. Roper, if you have good connectivity, you can cut me short because that way I can, since your network is, I think he's on again. I could wait till he speaks and I could come back.
Dr.
But
Broplet, you're
he's
on
silent,
again.
but he's
Can you
muted.
unmute yourself?
Yeah.
Can you unmute yourself, sir? Dr. Broplet, can you unmute yourself? Go ahead.
Okay. So myself and a group of Liberian engineers from all disciplines, electrical, civil, biomedical, biochemical, and you name it. We've been talking, and we have decided that we want to create a think tank here in the U.S. And then we will go to Liberia and establish a similar think tank to help solve a lot of the problems that we have, because engineering is so important. Almost any and everything that you do, as far as technology is concerned, computer technology, architectural, anything, you need engineers to do it. So we've been working on that. It's a difficult process because we are spread across the U.S. So we are working on it, and our prayer and hope is that it comes to fruition. And the second thing, so Dr. Lloyd, this is one thing we do on the think tank, is that you talk about knowledge transfer, skills transfer. I have been working on that. My ultimate goal is one day to go back to University of Liberia, because I do have a background in biology, electrical engineering, biomedical engineering. So I want to go back and give back to teach as in an adjunct capacity. But in the meantime, I've established an organization I call Laboratory Technologies. And so I'm going to Liberia to spend close to 2 months, and that's one of the things I'm going to be working on. So Laboratory Technologies, pretty much what I'm doing is we want to devise. I've contacted some professionals in Monrovia, in Banga, and other places around Liberia to have laboratories. Most of those high schools do not have equipped laboratories. So to take mobile laboratory, to design and develop mobile laboratories that will take to students. And the same thing with computer labs. So it's a program I'm working on, developing the curriculum. So teach computer technology to students from kindergarten all the way to high school. and I'm in contact with the uh, North Carolina educational system to get their K to 12 curriculum so that I could be able to implement it in Liberia. But again, it will have to go through the Ministry of Education. I will have to sell it, and my team and I will have to sell it to the Liberian government. And once they buy into it, then we can start implementing it. But we'll have a pilot program. That's one of the things I'm going to work on. And then the third answer to your question is the practicality. Currently, I do have my own LLC. I named it Ducor Scientific LLC. It's a biotech company. So what do? I work in pharmaceutical, and my company also have the experience in biomedical devices. So we design devices, electrical devices, biomedical devices from conception to fruition. So these are some things I'm working on here. I also work with a big company, but these are some things that I'm working on, and I plan on carrying to Liberia. So those are some of the answers to your questions. Yeah, I am very, very involved. I work along with other engineers and have my own personal projects that I'm working on. But I have a question for you, the clergymen, as for Dr. Wilson's, Dr. Lloyd, and Dr. Brooklyn. So as I was saying, Sierra Leone, Rwanda, and South Africa benefited greatly from Truth and Reconciliation commissions at the end of crisis in their respective countries. And as a result of that, we saw that those countries have seen significant growth, investment, development has been rapid, especially in Rwanda. So my question to you is this. In Liberia, we saw that in 2005, the TRC was enacted into law by our government. However, the tenets of that TRC have not been implemented, especially the War and Economics Crime Court. And you people being clergymen, what do you recommend as a path forward in the absence of restorative justice and retributive justice? We need those things in Liberia to find closure. After 14 years of civil war, impunity is on the rise, crime is on the rise. So what can you recommend? Should we go back to revisit the TRC and implement those things that have been ignored? President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf refused to implement the TRC. President George Weah refused to implement the TRC. That is the War and Economic Crimes Court. And we got incoming President Joseph Boakai. Will he do it? That's a question that I've been asked. And we've seen his surrounding. And there's all indication that he might not do it due to people in the inner circle, those who helped him win the election. So as clergymen, and the reason why I'm asking you, because you are pastors, and I know you will give it straight. You will give a straightforward answer. My dad is a pastor too, and I know how you will give an answer. So I'm asking, should we implement these things, because we have a lot of impunity, a lot of crime in Liberia, and we cannot move forward in the absence of justice. So that's my question.
Okay, I want to say thank you for your question, but we now have Dr. Brookler going again.
Yeah, you're going again.
Okay, yeah, okay. So we just allowed the two Reverend Wilson and Reverend Lloyd to answer the question.
Let me first of all, Brother Golowa, I am a little bit behind time when it comes to you use the letter TR, the
TRC, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
All right, and
let me just throw a hint on it. So 2005, then President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, she allowed for the TRC to be brought into Liberia. They interviewed a large array of people who were involved in the war, from warlords to, you name it, prominent Liberian citizens, regular Liberian citizens. And the TRC made a comprehensive report in 2005, and it was enacted into law. And the TRC recommended that those who who are most responsible for the Civil War should not participate in government, and that we should have retributive justice and restorative justice. However, none was adhered to. Madam Johnson Sirleaf came as president and ignored it, and we elected her as president. She did not enact the War and Economic Crimes Court. Again, when President Weah came into power, he came on the mantra of the War and Economic Crime Court will eradicate impunity. However, when he came, he asked the Liberian people, "Do you want War Economic Crimes Court or do you want development?" He pushed that under the rug. And then incoming President Joseph Boakai is being asked the same question, because right now, if you go on social media, Liberians are talking about auditing, declaring assets, and accountability. So, as clergymen, what would you recommend? What is a prescription from a biblical perspective? What would be a prescription based on your experience? Because you people among the three of you, got your experience is way too much.
Okay, so I'm sorry. I don't know. Reverend
Hey, he's
Dr.
back.
Brooklyn,
Yeah, he's back
you're
again.
back. Do you want to address, and then the two other Dr. Reverends can also just chime in?
I think he's still having internet connectivity.
Dr. Brooklyn, can you unmute yourself, please? You're muted.
You're muted.
Dr. Brooklyn, are you there?
I don't
Can
think
you
you hear me.
unmute yourself?
Yeah. Okay, there you go.
Dr. Brooklyn, you have the floor.
I may not be the best, but I'm here.
Okay.
You have the
We're
floor,
hearing.
sir.
Yeah, I'm here though. I'm not muted. Can you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Dr. Brooklyn, I assume you
Can you hear
familiarize
me?
yourself with the topic for the day. Why don't you go ahead and share your thoughts on the topic since you have the floor? You may want to shut your video off or
I
turn it
hear
off
but the
so you
connection.
can have a better bandwidth.
The connection is going again.
Okay, so we just go ahead, Reverend Dr. Wilson. You can just comment on it, and then we have Reverend Lloyd to do this.
Yes, thank you so much, Brother Golo. I'm going to try my best to respond to the question. And as you were trying to give a synopsis of this TRC, the first thing came to my mind was, if this was placed enacted into law, it was for the people spoke, and I believe this supposed to have been something that's supposed to have been implemented, but you said that leadership came and did not do anything about it. And the question now is being posted to the incoming leadership, and I don't think they have gotten the response that they needed or they want. I am, I've learned being a AME pastor, African Methodist Episcopal Church pastor. When I started ministry, I said I was going to keep out of politics. But living in the United States and having experienced what I've experienced long before I got here, the voice of an AME pastor cannot be kept silent. Have to speak. And you said as ministers we should probably get an answer that's pointed and truthful and what have you. I'm beginning to understand the dynamics of the political system in Liberia. I am not raw, if that's a better word to use, to what's going on. But when I look at why leadership has not enforced this enacted law, is it because nobody wants to be held responsible? Are they trying to protect their turf? Or is this, if they do something about it, will there be another uprising? All of these questions come to mind, as to why this was not enforced. Or is it for political gain or some political, uh, you know, acumen to do this or not to do it? Well, right now it has not been done. So obviously, this is something that probably needs to come back to the forefront, bring it back to the table, and see how this can be enforced. Put people in position. If this was enacted into law, then obviously it's part of the law of the land, to make sure that these things happen. Unfortunately, this has been silent. Why has this been silent? It's the question. Why has proactive stands have not been taken to do something about this? I think probably those who are in government back home would better be able to answer this, as I am so foreign to this. But at the same time, I think that this needs to be, if it was put in place, it was done for a purpose. And you talk about Rwanda and other countries that have benefited from this. Yes, we can do it. Now, understand now, my understanding obviously is that you have one segment of Liberia that are, well, have I would say, how do I put this without probably trying to say something that would offend anybody, and that is, excuse me, what I have myself, I'm sorry, it's the wrong time for anybody to call me. Oh, sorry, I'm very sorry. um my train of thought lost, but let me try to regain it. You talk about Rwanda, you talk about South Africa, and you talk about Sierra Leone. These countries have benefited from this plan, this system put in place. So why can't we? If they have benefited from it, why Liberia can't? Yes, we can. But I think the people who are in place to implement these things, for some odd reason, and probably Dr. Lloyd may know better than me. Uh, why are they stalling this? Are the powers that be saying to them, do not do this? Are they being pulled from one end to the other? And those who are responsible for implementing this are in between and stuck. Then something needs to be done. We either change the paradigm, change whoever's in charge supposed to implement this, remove them and put someone in there that will serve the purpose of the government for the people of Liberia. If this is going to benefit us, then therefore I think that it should be implemented. And this it may actually better go on. When did you say this was put in place? 2000 and when?
2005, Ellen. They, as part of the peace agreement that ended the war,
Yes.
it was agreed upon that we have a TRC in the style of South Africa, Rwanda, and Sierra Leone. And we did it. And Sierra Leone did theirs, and they had a war and economic crimes court and prohibited anyone who partook in the war from serving in government. We did our TRC, but we give positions to people who took part in the war and power sharing. The reason why I'm bringing this, because over the last two programs, our discussions, we have stated that Liberia needs to fix the problems of impunity and lawlessness. But paramount to fixing these issues or these vices is implementation of something like a war and economics crime court that will punish crime and that will punish bad behavior. Because if we don't, if we keep rewarding bad behavior as a nation, how do we move forward? And these kind of things scare investors away. Look at Liberia. How many investors do we really have in Liberia? And look at the unemployment rate. Look at the other countries. Sierra Leone, after the implementation of their TRC, the amount of investors that have gone into Sierra Leone, the amount of goodwill that have gone into Sierra Leone, billions of dollars have gone. Mara took when he came into power. But we have avoided this, and we having every time we're having sanctioned officials. The rest of the world is sanctioning us, and the rest of the world is shunning us because we have not done the bare minimum to bring justice. So this is why I'm asking you, what's because as you as clergymen, you have a different perspective, a non-political perspective, but you also have a political perspective because you are also cognizant of the politics of our country. But to add it to that, you could add the religious perspective to it. That's why I'm asking you this point of question. What
Okay.
is the way forward? Yeah.
Okay. So I'm sorry. I think we have Dr.
Yeah,
On,
he's going in.
and then yeah, he's going in and out now. So anyway, I just want for us to just take note of that when we see him, so we can gain the
He's
opportunity.
back.
He's back. Dr. Broplek, you heard the questions and the focus, the topic here: how can Liberians at home and abroad work together for unifyingly for a better, brighter future? And that's what we've been discussing. And there's a question on the floor regarding the implementation of TRC and how Liberia rewarding bad behavior instead of holding accountable those who partook in the war and really harm other people intentionally. And so that has been on the floor since 2004, 2005. And as we see, nothing has happened. And whether this new government is going to make sure to institute such, and if that's the case, how are we going to go about it? And what is your perspective on that as a reverend? So if you can just chime in, we appreciate it. Dr. Robler, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm still in the traffic in Dwell Zone, so if I lose connection, that's because I'm just in bad spots. All right, so yes, the historical, um, factual, practical piece. I'm not going to do the biblical because I don't think it's necessary at this point. So the TRC was recommended for like a year. The work was done and recommendations were made. And Madam Johnson Sirleaf at the time, the president, refused to implement. And part of that was because there were pieces that implemented her in the genesis of the war. So this was a matter of personal self-interest and preservation. So she left that alone and put those documents and recommendations down to collect dust. So we did nothing. And then President Weah came. When he came, he was already compromised coming in because of his relationships with the outgoing president and all of the agreements they have made and all the people from her government that he had to keep in his government. And he honestly just never had the backbone. He was already compromised, and he had the backbone. So he started to talk tough, and immediately that was dropped. But there was also the Prince Johnson type factor. I would like to put it that way, because of course, he's one of those who's in that report, and he started to raise his voice and threaten that if people try to dig this, that, there could be a rupture of the peace. Something that there are certain persons in our country that continuously hold that over the heads of Liberians. Anytime you try to talk accountability and redress and revisit and to deal thoroughly with the vices of our past, they jump in and they say, you want to rupture the peace. If you go this route, there will be problems in this country. And so President Weah lost his backbone. He probably didn't have it in the first place. And so nothing was done. I will say this historically, peace without justice is a formula for problems to persist in a society. Dealing with the issues of yesterday, it is important. Not that you're trying to get everybody, lock everybody up in jail, but you need to put all of those issues on the table and hold some people accountable for the actions, and most importantly, educate us about the errors of our ways in the past. So it serves as a deterrent for the future. And here in Liberia, we have a challenge as a people. We quick to get content, we quick to become complacent, and we say, "Oh, just leave it, man. Just leave it. It's all right. We got peace now. Just leave it." But when you do it that way, you find that the culture of impunity not only persists, okay, um, the culture of impunity expands. People get brazen, people get bold, and they do more things. And yes, it may not be war where bullets were flying, but the culture of corruption, the crime of corruption that just intentionally take away from the people the resources that they need to elevate them, that socioeconomic um, um, development that's so needed to move people forward. We constantly have this fight. So we had it a lot in this past 6 years. So we're at a place where you have to address those things. It has to be part of the national conversation, and there has to be some resolution around that. Going back to talk about the war, how it started, why it started, who did what, it's a conversation that needs to be had. I don't know the mindset of our president elect, but I hope that we will go there because we.
You still have to flow, sir.
His network is bad. Yeah.
I think you're back and you're muted.
Yeah, he's muted.
We
You-
need
okay.
leadership though, but we also need the people to be involved. We, the people, have to raise our voices consistently and demand what's right for us. And I think a TRC is right for us.
We're still listening to you.
Oh no, I wanted to rest there. I wanted to say that we have to deal with difficult situations and have those critical conversations because a Truth and Reconciliation Commission is good for Liberia. It may be
Okay.
challenging and discomforting in this moment, but it will be profitable in the long run.
Okay, thank you. But however, amidst regarding the topic, amidst the challenges that we are facing, war, Ebola, corruption, new election, new elected officials of government, how do you think Liberians abroad, at home and abroad, can work together for a brighter future? Since you are on now.
Well, okay. So I think, Lucy, the public-private partnership is critical. You know that around the world, including the great country you're sitting in, that's how you build nations. Public-private partnership. So Liberians at home, like myself right now, Liberians abroad, like so many of you. And by the way, I've had the privilege to travel 6 continents, and almost everywhere I've met Liberians, not just Liberians, but qualified and gifted Liberians. We are all over the place. So that collaboration, that cooperation, um, that kind of integration is helpful. It's critical. But we don't need some mega national government sanctioned program. What we need is cooperation in different sectors, okay? based on people's expertise, based on people's interests. Liberians can initiate. Liberians abroad can initiate something on the ground. And professionals here can connect with professionals there, and we can do some things for private sector development. Liberians at home can initiate something and connect with Liberians abroad. And we can do some things together to expand the private sector, create jobs, and grow our economy and better our country. So I think we have an opportunity again at the beginning of a new term, new administration, new leadership to do those things. What I do think, though, is critical, and at a press conference today, I talk about some of those things. What I think is critical is we need space. We professionals need space because ability follow opportunity. We don't need a government that tries to control everything and everybody. We need space so that we can have an appreciable degree of autonomy and authority so Liberians can do what we're capable of doing. And I think that's some of what we as the people must advocate for from the beginning of this administration. We must not be complicit and put this thing in autopilot and think that the leadership got the country at heart so they would do well. We have to engage, and like the late Dr. Martin Luther King said, we have to demand because people will not give you sometimes what you're asking for. You just got to demand it. This is the time for us as private citizens, professional Liberians, to get more assertive about trying to create space so we can help develop our country.
Okay, thank you so much. We know that Reverend Dr. Rudolph Brookler been having a little problem coming on. So I'll ask my colleagues. We have Dr. Caroline Davis, we have Mr. Felix Wilson, and Mr. David Golowo. If you have questions for Dr. Brookler to address, please come on board. We've already introduced you. If you have not introduced yourself, you can do that. And please, let's ask him the question before the system goes off. These are some of the things we discuss, and the whole internet infrastructure in Liberia is so kind of a low state. We still need to improve on it. So let's take the time to ask him some questions or chime in if we can.
Lucia, did you say Caroline Davis?
Caroline Davis, yeah, Caroline Brookler Davis, your sister.
That's my
I have
sister.
two siblings. Yeah,
I ain't a dog. I can't see you. Sister,
yeah,
how
I know
do?
you can see.
Hi, Rudolph. How are you?
I'm doing well. I ain't in traffic, but all right.
Okay, so
But Lucy, I wanna chime in on what my brother said. So the question that David asked is a very important question, and I think that something that's needed to be prioritized in Liberia, because we have countries that have set the example and we can follow it. We cannot say that, oh, people are instilling fear and saying that if you people start talking about this, war will start. Rwanda went through one of the worst civil conflict you can think about, the genocide that went on in Rwanda. And through the TRC reconciliation, people were held accountable, and reconciliation came into play for that country. Same thing in South Africa, same thing in Sierra Leone. We cannot overlook that. Whether we are clear check people or we are not clear check people. Barack Obama used to say some things are just common sense. And just common sense governance can bring about a lasting peace. These people who caused crime, committed crime during the civil conflict, they need to be held accountable. And let me tell you, just because somebody makes a threatening statement and we say, oh, nobody wants to rock the boat, somebody has to rock the doggone boat sometimes for peace to come about. Okay, somebody has to do that. And like Dr. Brubler said, we the people got to do that. We can't sit there because there are people still hurting. And if we push this thing under the carpet, it's going to build up just like a volcano. It takes years to build up. And when it spills, when it erupts, nobody wants to be around there. And for the future of our nation, we have to do that. We cannot overlook that. It should not be overlooked. And this is something that the Liberian view and Liberians abroad and at home should engage the incoming government. Let's give them time to settle and focus on what they need to focus on. But we need to bring this kind of topic up because there are people whose family members were hurt, killed during that time, and nothing has happened. They don't feel like justice is served. And we can sit down and say, just because somebody say, if you did this or if you do this, that will happen. We can't ignore that. And just like Rudolph said, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf could not do that. She couldn't implement the TRC because she was involved in the civil conflict. All right. George Weah came in. We were in Liberia in 2017 when he became president. He came in saying that his big thing when he was campaigning, he would make sure he protect the Oma, referring to Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. He will protect the Oma. He will protect the Oma because the Oma had given him the presidency on the silver platter, so he felt an obligation to protect her. But we can't keep going on like nothing has happened. If Rwanda today and South Africa today, they're experiencing the degree of reconciliation and peace in the country, we have to do that. Because if we don't do it now, we will eventually do it later. Because this thing is like a lava that is working underground, and when it erupts, it's gonna be bad for all of us. So we should not ignore that. We should address it, whether we are clergic or we are not clergic. We should address it. I don't care who making threat or not making threat. And if we need to get the international community involved in that, let us do what we need to do for justice to be served. That's
You are
my
so,
take on
so
that.
right. Thank you so much. You're so right because we cannot live in a country with fear, and we need to set a precedent because our precedents that you see people shooting people anytime, driving to at party headquarters.
You're muted, Madam Chair.
Yeah, because there's no law and order. We have vehicles driving to party headquarters and people are being killed. No one is held accountable. Somebody just go to your house and kill you because we have not healed. We have not discussed. We have not healed. We are not even healed. We've not discussed it and put in rules and regulations to say, yes, this happened due to the war. This happened due to the war. But going forward, if you do this, this is what is going to happen to you. We haven't even done that. So let's go around the table.
Yeah,
And if
Madam
you have
Chair.
any question for Dr. Rudolph Brople, you can please do that before we move to the other reverends.
So I want to quickly pose a question on the backdrop of Dr. Caroline Davis's comments, and I want it goes to all of the reverends here, and we can start with Dr. Brookler. But I too share a similar viewpoint that the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's findings should be implemented. However, I'm of the mindset that it's going to take a special kind of leadership to pull that off. Um, I think the way in which the message is sent, the way in which the leader talks about it to the people of Liberia, to his cabinet, to the legislative branch, makes a difference. And I think there are pieces of that probably should be relooked at. There's a retributive piece of it, but there's also the restorative justice piece of it. And I think from my understanding and what I've learned from studying the Rwanda situation, the restorative piece was the main driving force behind the restorative justice piece, was the main driving force behind the success of what they did, which means that those people who were significantly harmed, lost loved ones significantly, found it in their heart to forgive their uh, the people who harmed them, right? And those people who harmed them were willing to admit their wrong, right, confess their sins, and agree to certain retributive actions. That's what's needed. However, I think part of the challenge is when I hear people talk about it, the majority of the time, we tend to focus on the retributive part very significantly with a lot of force, and we tend to look at, providing the punitive damage so much so that it causes a level of you know pushback, right? It's a tough situation to be in the sense that we have people who are going to be brought to justice are required to admit their wrongdoings as leaders in our legislative branch, in our government. And so those people are going to have to be man and woman enough to speak up and admit their wrongdoing. But I think it takes a special leader to pull that out of there, and it can be done. So my question for the ministers here is, which approach do you think is better? Right, the approach of focusing on the punitive and retributive aspect of the law, right, or the restorative justice piece that requires some type of reconciliation and admittance of wrongdoing, but also reconciliation on the part of those who were severely harmed. What say you to the approach to implementing the TRC?
Oh, okay, thank you. So we have Reverend Dr. Brooklyn, and then we'll go to Reverend Dr. Edwin Lloyd. Dr. Brooklyn, the floor is yours.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Lucia. So that's a very good question. So, um, I like how you put the question in punitive versus restorative, and I think the language is important because it could help us, generate enough acceptance and buy-in. Because the truth is, first you need to know what happened, the truth of what happened. Then we have the freedom, the opportunity, and the right to decide how we address it. And I think in the bigger scheme of things, if we first can know the truth, what
Hmm.
happened, why it happened, who are the main players, then as a nation, as a people, we can decide how we go about addressing it. In other words, um, we can moderate consequences. We can have options. Like instead of going to jail, you could not be in politics. If your actions led to ill-gotten gains, we can retrieve some of those things and return the resources for public use, those kind of things. So we have options, but you can't get to the place of what a punitive restorative if you don't even get the process going. And that's what we need to get the process going. And then we can decide, on a scale from moderate, you know, um,
I think, Dr. Brooklyn, um, let me see. What happened? Okay, I think Dr. Brooklyn went off. So we just
Let's hear
we
from
would
Reverend Lloyd. We haven't
Reverend
heard Reverend
Lloyd.
Lloyd yet.
Yeah. We're hearing from Reverend Lloyd now, yes. That's what it's doing. Reverend Lloyd, go ahead.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the other contributors. Just want to say is that in relation to the question, I want to draw you to a quotation from Edmund Burke. He stated that in order for evil, in order for evil to become necessary in the world that we live in, is for good men to do nothing. Evil become necessary when good men do nothing. Also, I want to address this from the biblical perspective and draw us back to our topic of being abroad and being here. What can we do for the advancement of our nation?
All right.
And also, we get to understand that God is a God of mercy, but God is a God of justice, and also that restorative justice is a biblical
Amen
principle.
to that.
Restorative justice is a biblical principle that is necessary for the peace and tranquility and advancement of the humankind. Jesus Christ's crucifixion on the cross was an act of restorative justice. In order for mankind to be restored to God, Jesus had to die because of the sin of
Amen.
mankind. That is restorative justice. So I'm saying this to give a background to the fact that it's very important that a nation, in order for that nation to heal, justice must be able to be applied. And that's why the prophet cried out in the wilderness, let justice roll down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. And so when it comes to a nation healing from its past, in order to move forward, no man should go with impunity for the crime against humanity. Is this not something that should be implemented as a personal aggrandizement against individuals or something personal against the individual? But it is necessary spiritually for a nation to heal when those who have committed atrocities pay the price for the atrocities, so that we must be reminded that if we do not correct the mistakes of the past, we will most likely what? Repeat the mistakes of the past. And that mistake of the past will become present and futuristic also. So it's very important. And that and the Liberians here in the abroad galvanize and advocate for the total implementation of the recommendations of the Peace and Reconciliation Commission. And that's how, and in another aspect in a sector of our nation development, that the Liberians here and Liberians abroad be able to galvanize their resources and galvanize their powers and influence to be able to make sure this happens everywhere they want our nation to heal. And so that those who have committed these atrocities will ensure that lessons will be learned so that in the future, others will not come to that same decision and commit those same atrocities. Very important. Otherwise, the future that we are trying to build for this nation could crumble if there are individuals who feel that they can commit atrocity without impunity. It's very important that we do this. So the Truth and Reconciliation, their background was already explained by Dr. Brooklyn. I don't want to go into that. But what happened here is that reconciliation must occur if the truth, can be revealed, and reconciliation also involve restorative justice. But the part of reconciliation is to be able to account for your mistake so that you and admit to your mistake, apologize, and then ask for forgiveness and also receive the penalty for your crime so that reconciliation can strive. But if you do not admit to your mistake, how can you reconcile? And so it's very important. That's why the commission was the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, so that the truth would be found. I listened to most of the clips from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. If you have not done that, I encourage you to do that. You will learn a whole lot about the origin of the Civil War, what transpired during the Civil War. And if you learn that, you'll be able to understand how we can correct these mistakes that happen so that it will not repeat them as we move forward in the future. So I strongly believe that the recommendation of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission should be implemented. I've spoken with members on that commission, and also they were very frustrated with the lack of implementation. And Reverend Brooklyn said that right. And there were several reasons responsible for that. Liberia did not sign on to the International Court of Justice. Liberia not a member, she are not a signatory, not adherents, and I have not heard to that legalistic, that global legalistic system. And Charles was only in prison because of the Sierra Leone decided to implement their recommendation. That's why Charles Taylor, Liberia did not persecute Charles Taylor. It was Sierra Leone that persecuted him. No one who contributed to the atrocity in the Liberian Civil War have been held accountable. And so therefore healing needs to take place in that nation. So it's not something personal against anyone. But if we really want our nation to succeed and move forward, we must seriously look at these things. From a spiritual point of view, I'm not speaking as the minister of the gospel. I can tell you it's very crucial to the spiritual healing of that nation. That nation, the spirit of that nation is wounded. Because if the hearts of the people are wounded, the nation is wounded also. And there must be healing. There will be a renewal of mind. And there will be reconciliation through what? Repentance. It's very important that happens because the justice of this world and the legal system of the world were built from biblical principles and from the Bible. That's how we got the legalistic system of this world. So therefore, if we do not look at the spiritual implication of what is happening in our nation, we will not be able to heal. All right, and I just want to point that on that note. And those who also have committed atrocities should be able to reconcile within themselves so that they can have that peace and live with that peace as they begin to strive. No one wants anyone else to be persecuted or go to jail. But if it's necessary for that, for the healing of the nation, then that must happen. That must happen. And those who may be implicated and those who may be involved, they must understand that their sacrifice and the price they have to pay, the wages they have to pay for their sins is necessary for the growth of the nation. They really love the nation, they will be able to go ahead and pay those wages so that the country can prosper.
Thank you so much. Now we heard from the reverends. We know that we need to reconcile the wrongs and people be held accountable because that will lead to healing of our people, our mindset. A lot of us are so hurt from what happened in Liberia. And you can't say don't talk about it because you're afraid because the boat will rock. Sometimes it's better for the boat to rock than for it to sink later on. So we have heard that. So we have about almost like 8 minutes more because we want to make sure that we keep note of the time. And December 17, we're going to come, we'll be on air again to discuss this issue. From our last discussion, we talked about opening a chat room called the Liberian View Resource Center, where I think it has been drafted by our own Mr. Felix Wilson. And so we share it with Mr. David Golowo for us to look at it and have to see what's the need of us having this center. Is for us to have resources available that we can share with other organizations, and even Liberian View coming up with a strong proposal on the various sectors that we have discussed, and be able to have a presentation to the incoming government, like my own Dr. Caroline Broplet Davis stated prior to this discussion, the need for us to really come together, work together and not only sit on this particular platform to just talk, but execute it and have some meetings so that what we've said can be executed. We may not get what we want, but those that are listening to these discussions will also be reawakening, because sometimes you get numb to evil, you get a complacent. So we don't want that. So we're going to continue talking. December 17, we're going to be back here and on the same topic, and see how best we can come up with a proposal. By then the resource center will be open because it's left with Mr. David Golowo to have his input, and then we'll move ahead. But before we close, we want to give everyone 2 minutes to just make maybe a statement or synopsis of this discussion. What do you think, Liberian people who are listening, Liberians abroad and in Liberia, what should be the takeaway from this discussion? And we are so glad and privileged to have Dr. Rudolph Brople that lives in Liberia, that feeling it and know what is going on. We're so glad to have you. We're so glad to have another perspective from Reverend Dr. Harold Osborne Wilson, who has also joined us. And we're building a team. We want to let you know we're going to put your names in our center so that if you have any resources that will help other Liberians, you just put it in there. So having said that, we'll turn it over to our own Dr. Rudolph Brople, Reverend Dr. Rudolph Brople, who will just take 2 minutes to tell us why you're watching. Because someone said, even people, Liberians in the diaspora, they got confusion, they're not together. So ask our own Dr. Brople to give us what we need to take away from this discussion until December 17 at 4 p.m., 4:30 p.m. U.S. time and 9:30 p.m. Liberia's time. Dr. Brople, the floor is yours, and thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. You said something, and I will piggyback on that in my closing. You said we're afraid to rock the boat, but sometimes, and this is not exactly your word, I'm adding mine to it, but sometimes it's better to rock the boat so that it stabilizes than for the boat to sink. And so, rocking the boat is not an attempt to disrupt the peace, it's actually an effort to maintain the peace. I think the takeaway from this is that there are issues of our past that were not dealt with. And while we don't want to live in our past, we should learn from our past. And what we learn from the past is that so many ugly things raised its heads at different times and it adversely affected the forward march of Liberians. We cannot be the only country here in Africa that don't want to learn from our yesterday. We're not going to live in our past, but we must learn from it. And part of that learning is to say what went wrong and how can we prevent those things from happening again. And we should not be afraid because we're able, just like other countries, we're able to handle these things if we have to. This, to me, is not just a topic, but it's an important issue that needs to be addressed. So I applaud you and I thank you for bringing this to the forefront.
Thank you so much. We're going to bring you back again on the 17th. So we'll go quickly to one of our guests again, Dr. Reverend Harold Osborne Wilson. Just 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Kerr. And actually, this is my first on the platform, and I have learned just listening to a lot of things. Dr. Bropley, Dr. Lloyd, Dr. Davis, you have enlightened me um, to probably go back and start looking at things for myself, to keep up with the time of things going on in Liberia. And this is a wonderful platform, and I think that it will take someone with guts, or folks with guts, to be able to implement this commission's plan. As we were talking, my mind went back to the three countries we talked about that have been successful at, at implementing their the TRC, commission plan. Now, you know, is it possible that at some point, since they have been successful at doing this, have we sat at the table with them to kind of school us as to how they did it? You know, and I think that's if we're going to partnership with other countries to move forward to build a better future. I think this is one of the things that we need to do. What has been successful in one country certainly, can be successful in Liberia as well. But we have to have an open mindset. We have to embrace the change. We have to put people in place who again have the guts to move forward and not, be fearful of the decisions that are going to be made. Uh, and in our discussion tonight, I'm hearing a lot of why this has not been implemented for the global is that I think folks are fearful. They're fearful that if they were to go forward with this, their life would be on the line. And I think Dr. Davis said it right. We have to do something about it. If we don't, the volcano will erupt, and this will be what you call a devastating problem, more so than we can at least imagine. And I think going forward, we need to just put things in place. And if we're going to do something, do it. A lot of talk, no action. But sometimes when you want to implement the action, you have that barricade that's before you that will tell you if you move forward, you're either going to lose your life or something going to happen to your family and so forth and so on. We know the mindset of our people. We know what's going on over there. But at the same time, we have to stand up, and let truth be told and those things be corrected to move forward. And if we don't, I've heard over and over on the panel today that we're going to have problems going forward. If we don't address the problems of the past, they will usher into the future, and we will have problems again. And thank you so much, Mrs. Kerr.
Thank you so much. We'll move quickly to Reverend Dr. Edwin Loy, and the next voice we'll hear will be from Dr. Caroline Davis.
I just want to say in conclusion, I want to thank the panelists for the very, very valuable contribution to this discourse. And in closing, I just want to stress here of the power of collaboration. And one takeaway that we can have here is to focus on the power of collaboration. We Liberians should stop being what I call on the bench quarterbacks. Instead of directing the game from on the bench, we could go on the field and be active quarterbacks to effect the change and to be able to bring forward the victory that we all wish for our nation. And so there are very crucial areas that we need to address and a very, very, very important aspect of our nation future, and that they are what I call contributories to these present conditions of our nation that we need to address. So therefore, the power of our collaboration can be able to what bring about the change that we desire. And so I always speak against being divided. Liberians, although differences is something natural in our world, we will have differences, but we must be able to come together on the common ground. All right, and then focus on our mutual interests. Very important. The power of collaboration through mutual interests to be able to accomplish the goals and aspirations and expectations of our nation. Very important. And that'll take back, I want every Liberian to take out of this conversation that we have power in cooperation and collaboration. We just saw that from the recent election and how Liberians came together to be able to effect change in our nation. All right. And so therefore, we also in the diaspora also come together and be able to what? Create the change that we need. And that's why I said this time of our nation, we are at a very critical juncture of our nation. And we should seize this opportunity to be able to have a sustainable future.
Thank you so much. So we're going to give the floor quickly to Dr. Caroline Davis.
Thank you, Lucy, and thank you everyone who has been on today. What I would like to say as we conclude today is this. We all love our country, and I think we all have just a tremendous input every time we come here. We have people with great ideas, and I am the kind of person I like to see ideas turn into actions. So we will work towards that, Reverend Lloyd. What you said is necessary, it's needed. We'll work towards that. But this is what I want to say. I have a daughter. I think I said this here before. She got her master's over here, and then she got hired from here to go to Liberia to work. Okay, I have 4 children that I raised by the grace of God in this country, right? So she loves to be in Liberia, and we know the challenges she was going to face, but we let her go. So right now she works as the country director of that international organization. Yesterday, she called me and she said, Mommy, guess what happened? What just happened to me? And she told me the story about how she was in traffic. She was on her side of the road. She said that she mentioned, I guess she said EPS, this car coming. They left their side of the road and came on her side of the road. But she said the road was clear, and she said, I didn't move. She just kept on driving on her side of the road. And so the person in the EPS car, and I tried to ask her what EPS is. I think she said executive manager, something. I don't know. But the person drove close enough to her and took a bottle and threw it at her in her car. I am saying this to say that we have a country that is full of lawlessness. And if we let lawlessness continue, it will lead to greater problems for us. I don't think we need to be afraid. We just want accountability. We should not be afraid of intimidation, people who will intimidate us to keep us silent or to keep perpetuating wrong in our country. We shouldn't. I mean, look at the civil conflict in this country. Look at the what Dr. Martin Luther King and others did. So they were intimidated in so many ways, but they knew what they wanted and they went for it. What is it that we want in our country? What is it that we want to see? Okay, let's begin to have that vision of what we want to see and work towards it in our country. We can't be afraid. People need to be held accountable. If people are not held accountable, others will see and others will emulate. And so we need to do something. We need to do something about that. And people need to be held accountable. I'm looking forward to the process starting. Like my brother said, we have to start the process of the TRC before we can even sit down at the table with others who have gone through it. When they start the process, then maybe we can sit at the table and say, okay, what did you do to bring about reconciliation in your country? Then we can start the process. And hopefully with this new government and with us trying to unite here as Liberians in the diaspora and Liberians at home, hopefully with this new government, we will have a voice so something can get started. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So move quick, David. The floor is yours. What do you think? Anyone listening in the dark?
Well, all I'll say, bridging the gap, forging forward, prosperity for Liberia and all Liberians, will only begin or will only be successful if we rectify the errors of our past. So the topics were discussed today are all important, especially the emphasis on the TRC, retributive justice and restorative justice. I only hope and pray that we all come together and like other distinguished panelists have been saying, that we speak out. Because if we don't enact or we don't take action, um, things will just go on again. Since 2005, nothing has been done. So, on that note, I'll say thanks to our clergymen for giving their great insights. Thanks for the Liberian our listeners in the diaspora and in Liberia, and thanks to our own panelists in the Liberian View. And it's nice to see you guys again after a hiatus of a month or so. And I also will be getting in touch with Miss Kier and Mr. Wilson um, on the back end to complete the review. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So we'll go to our own Mr. Felix Wilson. What do you think from listening? What do you think you want for people in the diaspora and in Liberia can take away from this? Because we're trying our best to make sure that this is shared in Liberia also. I mean, we're sharing it, but we hope that Dr. Brooklyn will get.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Once again, the Liberian View has not failed to deliver the goods. Our distinguished panel have done an excellent job. Thank you to Dr. Broplair, Dr. Law, and Dr. Wilson, as well as Dr. Davis, our own, for the insight
Mhm.
shared. I just wanted to say we've been here a long time, been doing this for a while now, but we've, in my opinion, just scratched the surface of what can be done and what can be achieved. So we need to roll up our sleeves. I'm excited about the opportunity. I think with every new administration brings new hope for a better future for Liberia. As we were talking, there are three things I wrote down. I just want to quickly run through them. One, the first thing I said was respect. The respect piece is for us as individuals, both in the diaspora and those in Liberia. We must respect each other. We must respect our environment. We as business leaders and organizations that are going back home to do things, let's do it in, with class. Let's take the best to our country. The
Can we
place
mute our?
deserve the best, right? So if we're going to invest in a business, do a world class business. Don't dip it down to what's already there. Our country deserves the best. It's for the government. I think Dr. Brooklyn said it best. We just need the government to establish the foundational aspect in the roadmap and show the professionals where to go to get stuff done and how to do stuff. And we have the know-how and the wherewithal to get it done. And lastly, big ideas and big impact require us coming together. I think the Liberian View has shown examples of that recently, partnering with organizations in Liberia to teach and educate on the power of one vote and educating our voters on how to make a decision. And there are many other opportunities and things we can do. So let's partner with each other to bring about big changes in our country. So again, thank you, and I'm excited about what's next.
Yeah. So we want to take this time to say thank you to our listeners in Liberia all over the world. And we want to also speak to all Liberians to let you know that this government not the people business or not the people government. The government is for you. You are Liberian. They decided to lead and they won. So we need to all fold our sleeves and then try to see how best we can engage the government because this is our government. There's no more unity party. This is the government elected by the Liberian people. We'll see you on the 17th because we know after the 17th is a whole holiday spirit. So we usually meet on the last Sunday of each month. But come 2024, we may change it to 2 Sundays bi-weekly, and we'll see how that will work. But we'll see you on the 17th because we want to give you ample time to really have the time to listen in and to chime in. We did not address all your questions because of the discussion, but we hope that on the 17th, we'll be able to address some of the questions before we start the discussion. We want to take this time again, as my colleague have already stated, to thank Reverend Dr. Harold Osborne Wilson and also our own Dr. Rudolph Brookler and our member of the Librarian Review Board, Reverend Dr. Edwin Lloyd, and all our members. We have Dr. Caroline Davis, Felix Wilson, and Mr. David Gulliver Jr. to say thank you all. And we see you all on the 17th. That will be on Sunday of December. Please mark your calendars. It will be from 4 p.m., 4:30 p.m. U.S. time. And Liberia time, according to Dr. Brookler, he stated is 9:30 p.m. So please join us and ask your question. But for now, we want to say thank you and please have a nice week till we meet again on the 17th Sunday. Thank you all and God bless.
Thank you so much, Lucy. You're doing a great job. Thank you.
Good night.
Okay. So let's see what is going to happen here. Okay. Let me see what is going to happen. Okay, Dr. Brookler, thank you so much.
Thank you, Lucy.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate what you're doing.
Okay.
And hopefully
I will
next
meet
time we can be more stabilized and make a better contribution. I just got
on the
home.
17th. Okay.
I just got home.
I understand.
So,
I understand.
yeah.
Okay,
But
thank you.
thank you. Appreciate you.
Okay, thanks.
All right, bye.
Bye.